Hello and welcome back to another happy hour. I'm Ryan Fring, creative director here at Backflip, and joining me as always, we've got our boy over here. Let's do this. Oops. Turn that off. There we go. John Shoemaker. What's going on, John? Say hey.
Hey. Hey.
So we're like 15 minutes late. What happened?
The spirit of Halloween took over.
Oh, I do see that you are dressed up. Maybe we'll make. We already told Molly what you are, so we won't make her guess. How do you want to relay this to the people who are watching who you are?
To the world, I don't know.
Oh, that's what that is. That's a vacuum. I think I'm hearing. Yeah. All right. Well, without further ado, I'm gonna do this. Let's see. Oh. So I've had so many technical difficulties this morning. I apologize. John, go ahead and tell them a little bit more about your costume while I fix this right over here.
There's been a few different guesses. Let's see here. Down a little bit. Pretty awful. Some people guessed up, which really, okay, yes, I've got a big backpack, but I'm not a Boy Scout. I mean, come on, people, we know what the Boy Scout costume is. Somebody, actually our guest, she guessed that I was the guy from 127 Hours that had to chop his hand off.
No.
Not true.
Still not correct.
But you do look like him, though.
Somebody guessed Seth Green. It's like
That's good. Yeah, a redhead.
it's like this. I'm actually from an animated movie. All the people that are like getting this slow play here, we'll see if they comment before I actually say it. It's Hotel Transylvania. I'm Johnny. Not animated, so I guess it's harder to get. This morning, when I was leaving the house, my son said, "Yeah, you look great. You just need to make your face skinnier and your mouth bigger." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not actually."
Yeah, we got a picture here. So that's great. You're Johnny over here from Hotel Transylvania. I picked up on the hair. I just couldn't put the rest of it, but that's so good. And of course, now we do have our guest in here, so I do want to, let's do this. Bring you and your vacuuming glory in here. How's it going? Molly, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Sorry about the vacuums. Cleaning day.
That's all right. We totally understand. So we'll maybe get to my costume later, but what are you wearing today? Who are you?
I'm actually in normal clothing, which is nice. I'm usually in athletic gear, so this is like a special thing. I'm always wearing teaching clothes, just like
nice. So you're going to go today or tomorrow as somebody who gets to relax once in a while?
No. Every year when I teach, I wear the exact same costume, and it is a slice of pizza that is technically a toddler's costume from Old Navy.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I don't know if I've seen that yet. We've known each other for many years. I don't know if I've seen that.
I only wear it when I'm teaching. Your kids will see it tomorrow.
That's amazing.
It goes over your head. It's like foam. And on a toddler, it'd go down to like your feet, but on me, it just comes down to like here. But it's a slice of pizza, and it's like so pixelated. It looks like somebody took it with a camera from 1995 and like blew it up and just put it on some foam.
So
did
that come from something? Like why did you first start wearing that for ballet?
No, the first time I wore it, I just got it at Old Navy because it was like $3 and I thought it was hilarious. And I was going to the comedy show, the Monkey Bar. They're at the Glass Nickel.
Oh,
in the
cool.
basement of the Glass Nickel. And I wore a brown unitard and then that costume, and I got to go up on stage because they really enjoyed it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yep. And then I just wear it every year for teaching because it's really easy. And now the kids get like annoyed because I keep wearing it every year. So now I just always will.
The best part about that too, when you teach, is that you get, some new kids every year, so it's always fresh to some degree.
It is. And the other kids are like, come on, why are you slice of pizza again? Like, because it's bothering you. So
Yeah, you're like, because it's
I would
awesome.
continue. Yeah, it's like a terrible costume too, but
So we do got a couple
so
people out there who know you, like Carolyn, our good friend Carolyn, who's also been on the show. But for those who don't know you, can you kind of give us a rundown? Who are you? What do you do? Kind of the who's your daddy and what does he do? I will forever do
yeah.
that terrible joke.
Yeah, my name is Molly Luksik. My full name is Marguerite, and I'm the artistic director of a ballet academy in Middleton called Central Midwest Ballet, which I founded. This is our 6th year. Before that, I was a professional dancer with Madison Ballet, Ballet Austin, Pittsburgh Ballet Theater. I guested with Peoria Ballet. Just basically anywhere I could get a job. Somebody wanted to pay me to dance, I would dance for them. Ballet, that dancing. I'm originally from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and so I've lived here like I don't know, like 12 years now, maybe 10 years, 12 years.
Hmm.
So yeah, now I just run the business and teach and choreograph, and so yeah, that's what I do. I'm at the studio right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I've known you for a long time. So John, please do feel free when you've got extra questions, jump in. But what is that like? Let's maybe start earlier. It seems like after watching Black Swan, and hang on, let me do this real quick. There we go. It sounds like a transformer over there, by the way. I just temporarily muted you guys. Oh, it kind of sounds like a.
I don't know
I'll
what
watch
that
it
is.
though.
Sorry.
Um,
Okay.
but after watching Black Swan and just becoming an expert on ballet, it seems like something that could be really crazy intense, especially if you're good at it and can dance professionally.
Yeah, it is, and it's funny because I haven't been a professional dancer now for like now this is my 6th year, so it's kind of like easy to kind of laugh about it. But when you're doing it, I mean, it's definitely a passion. So and it's everyone's passion. So you've just got a bunch of passionate people all together, and so it's really like the highs are really high and the lows are really low.
Mm.
Like, because it's a whole bunch of artists and the average age is also super young. So that also, if I were still dancing, I'd be just so old.
Yeah, well, and yeah, that's such a funny thing too. Like just being a young woman, and then saying, "Yeah, no, I'm old in ballet years," which is
Yeah.
kind of crazy. I guess it's kind of like other athletes too, but maybe even much earlier. Some football players can, like a quarterback, can make it to 40, but when you're 40 as a quarterback, you're like a really old man. I mean, I think Aaron Rodgers is like 35 or 36, and he's like the old guy, right? He's been in there for like 16
Like
years or
forever.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. I mean, some dancers can make it maybe till you're 40 if like your body doesn't get injured and you don't really want to have, like, if you have a kid, it's hard to come back. You can do it, but it's, it's a lot of work. And so a lot of people leave so that they can have kids, and then it's also just like at a certain point, you're like, well, it kind of like you got to measure the pleasure with how much it hurts. Like I really love doing it, but like my knees hurt, or it just doesn't, it's not as easy as it was. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of people retire before their body starts to go down. So they're like, I'm kind of retired, I can still do this while it's still really fun, while I'm proud of what I'm doing, versus being the person where everyone's like, they kind of should be.
Yeah.
out the corner
Yeah.
now.
I feel like that happens
So,
with basketball, or not basketball, football players again. Just
yeah.
they have a season or two, and you're like, yeah, they were done a season or two ago, but they kept trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is obviously very unique for athletes.
Yeah, and I understand why. I mean, I really do. Like, nothing is the same. There's no job that's like that kind of job where you do it just because you love it. Like, I never wanted to go on vacation. People would say, oh, you don't go on these vacations. But it was like, but I want to be here. This is what I want to be doing every
Right.
day. This is what I wanted to do since I was like 7. So why would I go anywhere else? I want to be doing this. So that's something that's really unique and nothing is like it. So I understand when like athletes or whoever is trying to just squeeze that last bit out of it because you're not going to get it again. That's what it's its own thing. So
Mm-hmm.
It's now it's funny because I've had people say, even in in filmmaking in our profession, like, oh, it must be really fun, like just doing what you love. And I was like, well, yes, it is. It is work too.
mm-hmm.
Those still have those tasks or those days where the thing that you're doing is just something, a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. I would say probably the best part about not dancing is now if I'm having dinner and I want a martini, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have a martini. Whereas when I was dancing, it was like, just always keeping in mind like your body is your
Yeah.
job. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like, oh, I'd never drink or I'd never have dessert or anything like that. But you just are always conscious of it. And you spend a lot of time at the gym. You dance all day and then you leave and you go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, that's different. But, and there's definitely the stuff you don't like. But when I'm not dancing, that's kind of nice. Like, oh yeah, I'll just have a martini. Yeah, sure, I'll have that cheesecake. Like
Yeah.
whatever. I don't feel like going to the gym today. I don't have to.
Yeah. And you're not going to go crazy the next day about it or something like that. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So there definitely was still that stuff like you were saying, John. But I don't know. It just also is like I think it's probably, I don't run at all. I've never run. I hate running. But people talk about runner's high.
Running's the worst.
Yeah, running is the worst. I hate it. I
Terrible.
literally think the last time I've run was after a bus when I lived in Chicago. Like, no, I went for a hike once and I thought I saw a bear and I ran then, which is not what you're supposed to do, right, James Franco?
Sleepy James Franco.
Yeah.
I don't.
I don't
That's
think you're
awesome.
supposed to run. But yeah, I think that was the last time I ran. I hate running. But people talk about runner's high and it's like addicting. And that's, I think when you're dancing,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, yeah, maybe something hurts, but
Yeah, well, I'm interested in that too. Like, I feel like I have an addictive personality. I kind of go to the extremes. Like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm like, okay, I'm all in, everything, let's do it. Like working out, I started about 2 years ago, I think, a little over 2 years, and from that first week, I've been working out like 6 days a week. I just do it.
yeah.
And since that day, I've, changed my diet. I do different things with my diet. I do different things with my workout. But I've, it's just on, I just am. Do you, are you kind of a personality like that? Just, you're going to do something, you go and you do it. You don't look back. Is that kind of part of that intensity and that love of ballet? And how does that carry through now that you're an adult with adult things?
Yeah. I think for me, it was such a passion. And I actually really, what I liked about it was how difficult it was and that you had to kind of be all in. And it was like, if I'm going to do something that's so hard, I want it to be worth it. And I want it to, I'd rather go all in and have it really mean something. But it was because I was super, super passionate about it. And that's actually something that I struggle with when I'm not dancing because nothing feels quite like that. And so it's a little bit harder actually to be motivated because the rewards are not as tangible. When you're dancing and you're like, you spend that extra day in the gym or you go to the pool and you really, you build up your cardio and then like 2 weeks later, maybe your leg is a little higher in the air, or you can balance that thing just a little bit longer. You could jump just a little bit higher, or you can like feel the music or whatever just a little bit more. Whereas, yeah, my grown-up job, it's like, oh, do this giant project so that you can be fiscally sound in 5 years, So it's a little different in that way. But I think for me, it's maybe less that it's my personality to be addictive, like maybe for you, then it
Sure.
was such a passion. I just really, really loved doing it so much that that was kind of the driving force. I've often said like if I, if I like wanted to be as a good person or like wanted to get to heaven as much as I wanted to dance, I'd be like Mother Teresa right now. Like if I could focus like
Yeah.
I did for dancing, it's but like I just always wanted to do it,
Hmm.
always. And so it's definitely some kind of all consuming passion. You hear about these starving artists and you are like, how can they just give up everything for that? But it doesn't feel like you're giving up anything because you're
Hmm.
getting what you want. So
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and I think there's got to be different types of personalities that really get into this because for me, I think I'm just a very intense personality, and that's a part of just how I operate. So that's certainly it. But like what John said, with filmmaking, it's interesting because my job is filmmaking and marketing, and my hobby is filmmaking. Like I try to have other stuff that's not filmmaking just so I can have like a brain and body breather. Um, but it's it's interesting because I do find joy in it, and so I do it for a job, and then when I come home, I do more of it. And this is luckily a field too where my aging body does not cause a problem. Like if I can be on a set, just working, directing, maybe not lifting heavy things when I'm 70, like that'd be amazing. And I do that every couple of years. Like that's my retirement plan, to just be able to be, on set, occasionally making
still
movies.
doing that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have the sort of weekend warrior syndrome, though. I've noticed. I enjoy it, the physical activity and the shooting.
Oh, hang on just a second. Let me There we go. I think I can hear you now. Molly, I muted you just because of that noise. I couldn't hear John. Sorry. Go ahead.
Um, it's the weekend warrior sort of thing where you're working for a week or a couple weeks in the office, and then you go on a shoot, and it's like a long day or long days of intense physical activity. So
Right, right.
I enjoy it because it's like, hey, I'm getting out and I'm moving, but um, it's kind of an interesting. We kind of have this like where we don't get to practice it every day um, in a way that you might argue probably
Yeah. Um, let's see. Yeah, it's hard to hear John, even without the vacuum. Yeah, I just messaged you, John. I think you're talking through like a tunnel. I don't know if they have like all the attenuation on. The old.
maybe that's.
There you go. That sounds great.
You know what? I think this little screen protector thing probably sits over wherever it wants to, except take the
There you go.
microphone.
Thanks, Carolyn. We have to reward you for being our best listener and tech support for when things come up. So Molly, you're gonna have to unmute yourself. I don't think I unmute you. But this is the joy of being live. This is the fun that we get to be in. And like you said, John, it can be, physically just so tiring and mentally, and I love it. And it's so interesting because like you got to balance that, and the family certainly needs your mental energy as well. And when you have a long shoot day, that's really hard to then come home and be like, all right, now everyone jump all over me and do everything. And and I think that's part of it. Like we have many friends and some friends who are in LA who are single or don't have families and about our age, and they can keep going and going and going. And I think, eventually we all have to find that balance. But I love it. Like as long as our significant others can handle it, I'm gonna keep having 14-hour days that are just nuts. And mentally at the end of the day, I'm like, I've made 1,000 decisions. I don't want to make any more, but I have to.
Yeah, that's always when you've like been all day just making decision. And especially now, one thing before I started running this business and I was dancing, I would like to plan parties or plan events, but now I'm like,
nice.
frick no, I will
Yeah.
just show up at something. I'm not planning anything because I am just like constantly dealing with all the details of everything, which I'm a detailed person, so that's fine. But that means in my personal life now, it's like Oh, a party? Just show up and whatever happens, happens. That's the end of my planning on that
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, well, and I definitely I don't want to skip ahead in your story. Like I do definitely want to
Oh,
talk
sorry.
about the dancing. However, with this topic, I'm super fascinated too cuz like decision fatigue, I feel like all the time. So I'm curious, for you switching from being a professional ballerina to now being the founder and artistic director for the Central Midwest Ballet Academy. What's that difference like for you? Like, did you not have to make decisions before and you just listened and did what they told you, and now it's thousands of decisions? Or like, what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have thousands of decisions now, but when I was dancing, I also was teaching and I ran some of the other programs for the company that I was dancing for. So it wasn't like I had no experience running things. And I had done some other work over the summers. Like I managed a statewide fundraiser for a Senate campaign one summer. So I did do some like other jobs that had some of that kind of stuff to it. And I think that in terms of being organized for an event, something like that, or being very detailed, I'm certainly anal enough to be able to do that. So
Yeah.
I feel like that part was kind of okay. The thing that was the biggest change was that my decisions now affect so many other people.
Hmm.
And that I know that these dancers that I'm teaching are just as passionate as I was. So, like, they really care about the results of my decisions. And so that's the biggest difference. Whereas before, if I was dancing, I still had decisions to make, or whatever programs I was running where my decisions weren't as impactful, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that these kids, like the ones that want it as badly as I wanted it, if I make a decision that somehow screws up their future, it feels like a lot more pressure now. So that's probably the biggest change.
And just kind of with that, like, do you, I don't know, again, like, what is it? 30 is the new 20. And now I feel like coming up on 40. I mean, I'm still 5 years away from 40, but 40 is the new 20 in my mind. You always feel young when you're at the age, like, I feel like we're very young. But like, do you ever, what's that pressure like for you, right? You're the founder, again, artistic director of this organization. You're also the primary boots on the ground. You have your other staff who teaches, but sorry, I'm going to do this just because of the sound. I think what it is, and I've muted it for the people at home. I think what it is Skype likes to modify your microphone so that when you're not talking, it gets really, really sensitive. And so we're hearing weird stuff. And then when you are talking, it gets not as sensitive. I don't know if that's a setting you can change, but
cabinet that has a fan in it or something.
No, I mean, my laptop maybe has a fan in it. I don't know, but
well, this is the joy of live. People get to go through this with us, and please also, as a reminder, post your questions down below as well, because we want to know what questions you have for Molly. I've got one from Emily at our office. But just in that kind of following up with what I was saying, I feel a lot of times, like I'm still very young and still figuring things out. At the same time, I know I have a lot of expertise, and especially when I'm working, with other professionals, other agencies, other people, I'm like, wow, we know a lot more than I, would have assumed we know, because we've been doing this for so long. But do you ever get that, like, that idea of imposter syndrome, like, I'm in charge, like, who put me in charge?
all the time. When we first opened the first time, like, because I didn't go to college, so I hadn't even sat in a classroom, and I was homeschooled for high school. So I hadn't even sat in a classroom since 8th grade. So, like, actually coming and working in an office all day was like, what is this? Like, I'm sitting in a chair all day. And then I had to, like, kind of catch myself up on some of the technology things, like how to layer pictures in Word, even was like relearn that. And the first time I made the registration form that students have to fill out, and I just, like, put the line like to sign here and whatever, and doing all that. And I actually had Carolyn actually helped me. But the first time I just made that and then handed it to someone and they signed it, I was like, I just made this thing in flipping Word and this means something. Like this is a form that actually they're going to give me money because of this piece of paper.
Yeah.
It was like, I just somehow thought that all this stuff was like more, I don't know, like it came out of these like vaulted, it was just so strange to me that like, I just typed this thing up and now it has all this weight. And that felt like, it blew my mind. It blew my mind that it just seemed like not important enough to have that kind of validity. And that was, I felt like a kid pretending to work in an office at first, especially because when we first opened, we had no money. So I didn't have like furniture. So I was just sitting on the floor of my office when I got a chair. Yeah, I just had like an empty room that I would sit on the floor and work because all the money went into building the studio. And so when I got a desk, it was I was like, woohoo, we are fancy here. So,
well, and I think there's something magical too with that, going through that experience, because we certainly went through that experience from being in like our first, I'm trying to think of when we actually formed in 2007, if we were in John's house on, was it West Wash? If we were in there or if we were in your apartment. I think. Oop. I'm just hearing the whatever, the motorcycle.
Yeah.
There we go. You're good. You're good.
I think it comes through her feed and then it overtakes my microphone.
Don't worry. I'll just mute. I'll mute our guest. Sorry, Molly.
We were over on Old University in the apartment.
Okay.
And one of our founders and I were roommates
over at the Casablanca.
Yeah, over at Casablanca, and we had a 2-room apartment. It was pretty big, but it was a 2-room apartment, and there were 3 of us. So we put all the beds in one room, kind of made like a bunk, and we put all the desks in another room, and it worked nicely. But that room kind of functioned as like the de facto office for a little while.
Yeah.
First couple jobs that we were working on, especially in the summer when the one guy was out, gone on a co-op, we would just take over the different desks in there and worked on a few projects in that. And yeah, there's always the challenge of legitimacy or the struggle for legitimacy. There's both imposter syndrome, but then also that's the internal side of it. But then the external side of it is struggling through years of different people asking us, how old are you? When we're like talking about doing a job, and it's like, I don't know, I'm old enough to make a good piece of marketing for you. I know more about your marketing than you do. That's how old I am.
Yeah, that's one of those funny things too, where it's about trust, and it's amazing because even when they're asking that question, they're like, yeah, we trust you. Here's, $10,000, $20,000 or whatever. And for you, Molly, they're like, yeah, we trust you. Here's tuition and here's our children.
And here's our children. Exactly. And I had been teaching for so long before I opened the school that was the part that I felt very comfortable with. In the studio, it was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this. I mean, not like I'm a master or anything. I'm always learning. I'm always improving. But the teaching part, I was like, yep, I know what to do here. It was the business part, because it was just like, I'd been a dancer, they don't even, you need to be able to count to 8, and count music. That's like a skill. Then you need to be able to memorize a ton of stuff really, really fast, and obviously other skills. But the business side of it was really the biggest challenge. And I think the one thing, this was actually funny because we have a show, like a little in studio something coming up soon. And so I had to cast some of our advanced dancers just like earlier this week. And I had one of my teachers helping me who was a dancer with Milwaukee Ballet just last year. And so she's just now stopping dancing and starting kind of on the other side. And so she was helping me with casting. And she was like, wow, I wish that I had like known how this works when I was a dancer and I wouldn't have taken it so personally. And I remember thinking the same thing. The first time I had to cast a ballet, like there's so many factors that go into it, you know, ranging from like what costumes do we have and how tall are you and oh well these two people are going to look good together because they're kind of the same height and maybe I like or this person needs to work on that so I'm going to put them in this, but then it's a puzzle because you have a certain number of people and so there's a lot of just like okay well then where can they fit and who fits in. And but when you're the dancer, you just look at that casting page and you assume that the director is just like, I mean, I hate Molly, and that's why I put her in that part.
Sure, yeah.
I saw her last week for that green leotard, and I hate green, and I told her that, and now she doesn't get a good part.
I wonder
that's how it feels.
If that's like a program you can create, you know, or offer, and in return you get some people to come teach a summer thing at your school, but to provide that type of experience, like, hey, you're going to do a little show. I forget the term for like those things, but just a little performance. You know, you're going to work with kids for like 3 weeks, and you're going to produce everything. You're going to work with the parents on scheduling. You're going to cast it. You're going to, make the costumes. You're going to do everything just to help give them a little bit of perspective from the other side.
Yeah. We actually had that happen over the summer. We had 2 students who did that. And partially the reason that they could do it is because they're so much older than the other kids that they were working with. Because the problem is I would never let students do that with kids that they dance with.
Sure.
Because that's their contemporaries.
Yeah, that dynamic would be crazy.
No, that'd be crazy. Yeah. But these 2 students were significantly older than the students that they were working with. So they were, in some cases 10 years older. So, and they definitely were like, we had no idea. And I said afterwards, yeah, you 2 learned more than anybody else here. And we want to try to do something like that in the coming years where they even have to choreograph to see just how much work goes in to that. And I always want my dancers to have as much experience, honestly, with the production side of things too, because as a dancer, you can just show up at a theater and be like, here it is, this space is totally ready for me, and not really realize that like people did a ton of work before you showed up, like hauling Marley, hanging lights, setting the lighting programming, getting the music all set, whether it's live or recorded. There's so much work that goes into it. And I've seen dancers and worked with dancers who will be like, their costume has a little thing, and they'll be like, costume mistress. And I'm like, you're gonna have a needle in your costume.
Yeah. Also, we've got one more costume to finish. And if we don't finish it, one person's not going to have a costume. So maybe just chill out.
Yeah, just like relax. But yeah, I think it's so hard with students. Like it's casting is the thing. They just take it so personally, and there's just no way to really like get them to understand. It's so much less personal than you think. But like, I don't know. You could have told me anything that as a dancer that would have made me believe that.
Yeah. So
like you die by it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and just getting perspective, I mean, I think that's great for any industry as well. And you had mentioned not going to college, and it's interesting because we've talked at the UW before. John and I went to the UW and got bachelor's degrees in production. I think mine was a Bachelor of Science in Communication Arts, and his. Did you get a bachelor in arts, whatever? Hang on. Give me just a second, John. Oh, there you go. She muted herself. Thank you, Molly.
Mine is also a Bachelor's of Science in Communication Arts.
Because you probably also had a lot of science classes that made that a little easier.
Yeah, well, I was going for pre-med, so.
There you go. Well, and my point is that, I think if you're going to go into this field after high school, you should go and intern and work for somebody for like a year, even if you work for free. Do that while you can live at home and while all your expenses are paid. Go and do that and see if that life is for you. You know, it's long hours, lots of extra hours. It's being an entrepreneur, but not owning the company. Now, it's weird because I can say that, and I am an entrepreneur who owns the company. But Luke, our Luke of all trades, is a great example of this because he came to us, I think maybe even in high school as an intern, and did a little bit of college at one of the local colleges, and decided not to finish that and just stay in the industry and work with us. And now, you know, we can send him out. We actually sent him out today. Something came up and he went out and he's filming today for us. He's representing the entire company, filming for us. And I think, let's see, he's just 21. So he just turned 21 at the end of last year, maybe. I don't know. But he is so far ahead of anybody. Like, he's so far ahead of I was when I came out of school. You know, he has so much more experience. And so I value that. And it's funny when we come and talk to the university, try to be cautious of like, okay, you're here now. Like, here's how you can benefit from this here and now. However, here's the important things. And I think that just being able to get out there and learn the other side of things, like, oh, it's going to be so great. I'm going to make movies. I'm going to write. I'm going to direct. And everything's going to be amazing. But the reality is you're going to have really long, that's okay. I mute you over here. The reality is that you're going to have really long days. You're going to work extra. You're going to work weekends. You're going to, you know, give a lot to this. And eventually anyone who sticks with it is going to get to where they want to be. If you want to be a writer, if you want to be a director, if you want to be a cinematographer, if you want to be a producer, if you want to be executive producer, you want to have your own company, just stick with it. That's really all it takes. You know, there's 0.5% of us who are just geniuses and super talented, and they get out right ahead of everybody. The rest of us, we put in the work and we get there and we learn, and, you know, you can start 4 years ahead without school. So that's my high five to you, and just an encouragement to anyone else who wants to do this type of thing, production or marketing. You know, go ahead and take a year off. Call it a year off for your parents, because your parents might say, you got to go to college. Be like, I need a year off. I'm going to go work for a year. Go work at an agency, and that's when you're going to learn stuff.
Well, I think another thing to add to that, specifically just because of where we live, you know, live in the Midwest, live here in Madison. I had an editor, the, you know, head editor at a video production company that I used to work at, intern at, tell me that, you know, after he graduated, he and a friend, you know, went separate directions, and his friend packed up a car full of all of his stuff and drove out to LA, and he stayed kind of in the area and found an opportunity. And he said, you know, my friend works at, I think it was MGM, you know, like a name brand place. And he's like, and I work somewhere that no one's ever heard of. But, you know, 5 years later, this friend at MGM is still, you know, getting coffee for people and taking out trash. And he's like, meanwhile, I've edited, you know, national Hyundai car spots. I've done these things, you know. So there's opportunities, and maybe, you know, you could speak to that a little bit about like the opportunities where, you know, we're not in New York or Chicago or, you know, wherever the dance world sort of center is, but there's opportunities that, you know,
Russia.
you might even get more experience, you know, have more chances to do things. You're in a smaller market, so your ceiling is lower, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely. It's just such a young career. So you can go to college and be a ballet dancer. It's just definitely not the common way. And for me, I didn't, like, my first job, I was 17. So why would it's such a short career anyways. Like, why would I give up that time? And a ballet company, most ballet companies do not care anything about whether or not you can do what they want you to do, which is dance. And work well with their choreographers and do what you're asked. So to me, it didn't really, like, make a lot of sense why I would give up that time. I did always have a backup career that I was like, well, if I fell down the stairs and break my back and can't dance and I'm under this age, then I'd be willing to put in this much college to become I thought I'd be a criminal forensic psychiatrist and interview serial killers. That was my backup career. little different than a
By the way,
ballerina, but
that's nuts, and I love it. And every time we hang out, I'm gonna keep thinking about that. Like, is she trying to analyze me? Is she trying to find my secrets?
I am like so fascinated by all those crime shows that talk about serial killers. I was like, that would be the career for me. I would love it. The but like, yeah, a lot of people will think, well, you didn't go to college. That's, what kind of a career path do you have ahead of you? And it definitely is. It's different. So like, a lot of dancers do start doing college while they're dancing. They'll do night classes or something like that. And when I first started dancing professionally, I did try to do that. My parents wanted me to get an associate's degree. So I was trying to take some classes on the side. At that time I was in Pittsburgh, so at the community college. And actually the first time that I took my only college class that I took in person, it was English Comp 101 at Pittsburgh Community College. And again, I hadn't been in a classroom since 8th grade. So at the end of a ballet class, when a ballet class finishes, well, first of all, you are like not allowed to look at the clock in a ballet class in any kind of overt way, because the teacher, I've gotten kicked out of class for that. They're like, oh, you have somewhere better to be? Then go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned that the other day. Somebody looks at a clock and you're like, "Oh, are we boring you? You can leave."
Yeah, exactly. It's very disciplined. But at the end of a ballet class, the teacher says thank you, and you applaud them, you clap, and then you go up and you curtsy to them and say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm in this English comp class, and like people are just staring at the clock, and I was so mortified. I was like, oh, everybody's being so rude. How can they do this? And then we get to the end of the class, and the teacher says thank you, and I start clapping.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing!
Just, like, staring at me, and I was like, oh, we don't do this here.
You're like, okay, no one claps. Everyone definitely curtsies, and so then you went up and you curtsied.
I did pick up on the social cues that we were apparently not doing the thanking the teacher thing, but the scheduling just like never really worked out for me to finish the associate's degree. But I kind of always thought that I would go to college when I was done dancing, and a lot of people do that. And college is really, they're happy to take an adult who's doing a second career. So it's always like, it's always there for you. It's always an option. And the people that I know who danced and then did college actually did college really well, because they went at it with a real, like, this is the goal. This is the point of why I'm here. And I know how to work, and I know what I'm achieving. So it worked really well for the people that I know who did that. But a lot of people don't, and they still have a great career. And I found a path afterwards, and I actually taught at the UW for a while, even though I didn't go to college. But kind of what you were saying too, John, that I totally agree with that. So some of the people I trained with dance at New York City Ballet and just some of the biggest companies in the country, and like, great for them. Like, they certainly were talented enough to do that, and they worked super hard to get there. But for me, when I was like 14, I had this idea that if I didn't dance for San Francisco Ballet, I was just such a failure. And it took me a while to kind of like that. I'm too short. I wasn't good enough. Like, you have to kind of learn where you fit in the industry. And so it took me a while to not think that dancing with these smaller companies was not like a failure. But for me, it actually ended up being a great thing, because had I been with one of those big companies, because I'm only 5'2", you kind of are going to get pigeonholed into the types of roles that you can do. But since I ended up dancing with such small companies, you get to do almost anything. You get these chances that you really never get if you were in a bigger company, where they've got, this is the person who does the slower, more like romantic lyrical roles. This is the fast dancer. This is the jumper. This is the turner. But when there's 10 of you, you all have to do everything. So I definitely agree, John, with that. Like, and I talk with my dancers about that all the time, because it's so enticing, these big companies. And for some people, like, great, it's a perfect place for them. They're going to love it and just be happy and fulfilled and have a great experience, but not for everyone. And I think just having that like idea that being in a smaller place is not failure. And just because nobody's heard of the company you're with, first of all, if you're getting paid to dance, you win. You succeeded.
That's totally when I was starting out in this field.
Dancing.
I was told what? Yes.
When you started out dancing.
That, I was told, well, there's only one Steven Spielberg, and I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to be Steven Spielberg. Like there's a lot that you can do. The job title doesn't equal the one thing. Now, maybe astronauts, I don't know. There's a handful of them. But I think even to like make that sort of analogy, like there's a whole field of science and research, and there's a lot of people that work in that. So you can like go in a direction towards something that you're interested in and find a spot. And as long as you just aren't only ever focusing on like, I need to be like the recognized name in this thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's knowing what you like about that career. So since ballet is such a young career, a lot of students at like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 would be considered kind of the college of ballet, where you're like really getting the most intense training. And a common thing is to go away for the summer and train at these intensives that are 5 or 6 weeks long. Some of them are attached to big companies. And so one of the things with some students that are really, maybe they're 14, 13, and they're like, I think I want to do this. I always recommend there's one summer intensive that's 5 weeks, and it's just training. And I'm always like, you should go there because first you don't need all the glitz and glamour at 14. You need to like learn how to hold your body and do stuff. But also, since it doesn't have a performance, it doesn't have costumes, it doesn't have any of that fancy stuff, you will know if you like ballet. And if you like it for the hard work and for the love of like how it feels and the achieving it, not for the performance and the tutus and the tiaras and the lights and being on stage, because that's such a small percentage of the time. Most of the time you are not on stage getting applauded. You're in a studio getting yelled at, it's a different thing. And so I think those summer intensives it's kind of like what you were saying, Ryan, about the doing an internship, because at the end of that 5 weeks, I've had students who are like, nope, don't want to be a dancer. I mean, I want to dance and I want to do it for fun, but I don't want to be a dancer. I hated that. And then there are other people who come back, like for me, I went there my first summer and it was like, oh my gosh, like give me more. Like, and you take 3 ballet classes a day, and then there's an optional one at night. And then if you want, you can ask them for another one. So that's what I did. I was just taking 5 ballet classes a day, and just like, can I have more, please? Like more. And that's it. You have to like it that much. And there was no glamour. It was just the hard work of it, just the like sweat and the effort. And if you don't love it for what it really is, then you're not going to like it for what people say it is. And I think that's this exact same thing that you were saying, that like you don't want to go to college for 4 years and have whatever amount of debt and then do your first job and be like, wait a minute, I don't actually like what this is. I just like what TV says it is.
Yeah, or being at that intern level, or being like, oh, it's very different than what I just learned.
Yeah, than what I imagined that it was. And so better to know that at 13 or 14, and certainly better to know that than at 22 or 23 after you have thousands of dollars of student debt for a degree in that. So I think a lot of industries could have some kind of thing like that, some kind of intern. In ballet, it's called an apprenticeship or a traineeship. But
yeah, I mean, I would love to do more of that apprenticeship and traineeship, and we'll be taking on interns from college, and maybe we can reach out to high schools and be like, hey, we'll do some internships with some people.
I was just gonna say, like, how would you find, like, what qualifications would you as a company use to take an intern, because without that qualification that a college can give, what qualifications, like, would you give them a test? How would
Oh,
you
breathing, if they're breathing and, healthy. But I mean, so like with Luke as an example, we can count on him for just about anything. We call him our Luke of all trades. And he's awesome in that. John and I used to be the guys who, have to build stuff and have to make things and come in late and do all this stuff. Now Luke helps us with a lot of that. So he does a lot of the major kind of, I want to say not environmental, but just kind of those ancillary things that John and I used to do as founders. You just have to do certain things. Like, what do you do as a founder? Well, sometimes, or as an owner, sometimes I'm putting toilet rolls on and changing garbages and, moving product, and I'm buying tea. Not as glamorous as taking a limo to a movie premiere, which we have been fortunate enough to do. But what I like to find is people who are okay doing anything. They want to be around it. They want to do the things. And with Luke, he started off cleaning and he just killed it. He did a great job. And he's like, okay, I'm done. Is there anything else I can do? What else can I help with? And just that attitude. Like, I want somebody who works hard, and anybody who works hard can be successful in this industry. You might not be super visually talented, but if you can work hard, you're going to learn the skills and the trade, because maybe it's, you look at it that way. It's like a trade. You're going to learn the trade if you can work hard and stick with it. That you get a little bit of the knowledge in college, and there's some good things in there too. Like, maybe you meet somebody who knows somebody and you guys can make a film when you get out of college, or somebody who ends up being the next Spielberg or whatever, like connections. Like, okay, do you want to pay money for connections? So that's something you can consider in all those things. So that's kind of what I think about that. And in terms of qualifications, like, if you're just going to be able to work hard, like, there's always going to be a place for any type of person like that here. And
you need the education somewhere. So there is some value in getting some of the history of things, and like, I guess every now and then it's good to think back on, like, well, yeah, it was worthwhile, like, learning, like, why are things done the way that they're done? What was the history of that? And, again, especially with just visual media, you kind of see, like, well, why is it that we do this? And it's because these things were sort of developed over years and years of the pioneers creating this industry or this art. So this is why these are the, I'm trying to make an analogy here or make the comparison. I think it'll work pretty well. It's like, we shoot in a certain way, or there's a certain, like, language to cinema. And similarly, there's a certain language to dance. Like, this is what the things are sort of built upon. And you could learn that in an apprenticeship model, and that still is a very valuable way to learn it. But the book learning, it was valuable. Like, it was good to have that. But then you still have that real world, like, this is the real world, and this corporate client doesn't really care about, this reference to, Japanese cinema or whatever.
When has somebody cared about our degrees is kind of the main question.
Yeah.
When have we got hired? I mean, we got hired by the university because we were alumni and we did some good creative, but beyond that, we've never been hired because of our degrees. No one gives two bleeps about our degrees.
2 degrees.
I feel like in our industry, it's a little different, because, like, if, let's say, I had trained with like San Francisco Ballet School is really renowned, and if that were on my resume, if I were able to graduate from that school, that would actually get doors open for me. But part of it is because you're not going to graduate from that school if you aren't good enough to graduate from that school. It's not like if you
Mhm.
just keep paying money and showing up, like you're not going to get into their trainee program and graduate from that elite program. And so I feel like even kind of in your industry, maybe it would be, you take that year off, like you were saying, you take a year off college and see what the industry's like. First of all, to even see if you like it, what it really
Mhm.
is. And then you might even see something like, oh, I really like this aspect of it. And then that's what I'm going to major in. And I'm going to make sure that I take courses in just like those specific like topics, or maybe you don't even get like a degree in it so much as you just learn those things, because that would be the one thing that, I mean, I assume that there's probably software that would be helpful, that if you were going to hire someone, that if they understood that software, like I know how to work in Photoshop, or I know how to work in whatever, that would make it easier for you guys to hire someone. And that, I think, is the value of a degree, right? Is that you kind of are assuming that they learned those base skills, kind of.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
don't
And I would
know.
probably kind of be on the side of like, if you're going to go into this industry, don't go to school. Like our industry, go to LA, work somewhere local. You can always do something else. And in fact, um, ooh, speaking of Luke, he's giving me a call. I might have to step away and talk to him. Let's see. He's on a shoot. Let me talk to him. John, you jump in.
Looks like he maybe called me too. Oh, maybe not.
It's calling both of you. Oh my gosh.
No, he didn't call me. He just called Ryan. He called the important one.
It's like DEFCON 5 if he's calling both of you.
Yeah.
I
What
didn't
was
know, but then
you
it was,
talking about being
oh, he left his thing on. Well, and like the one thing you said about like nobody cares about your like your degrees, and that's something that when I'm teaching, like when you're on a shoot, are they asking like
well,
what was the history of?
right. So that's I think that was the point he was making. Now there's a value in a degree, and it shows that you were able to set out on working on something, bring it to completion, and complete it at the acceptable level based on their metrics. But at the end of the day, um, in our industry, it's like, well, let's say you're applying to be an editor or something, like, well, let me see what you've done. And
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not entertained, if it's not good, like
Not going
it's
to hire
not.
you.
And similar, it's like you can study dance. If you can't dance, you're not going to be a dancer. Like
Oh yeah, like when you go
Mm-hmm.
to an audition. Oh, sorry, hang on, let me.
you can maybe do something else, but within it or something. And then that's where that hard work aspect comes into play. Like there's a role for a lot of different people who work really hard, but there's not the specific role of like, well, I want to do this thing. It's like, well, so there's like this like talent aspect. I think that's what's interesting and challenging, and talking about auditions and tryouts and stuff. Like we've gone through some of those, and you feel, like you said, you feel that thing where you're just like, oh, I hate to do this, but like there's a there is an aspect in the creative industries that is based on talent, that sort of natural talent. You could maybe gain that through enough training, but there's a certain factor that doesn't necessarily apply in maybe some other industries. I don't know, maybe it
Well,
does.
there's that idea of like, I'm trying to think of it because when we're selling something, there's good, cheap, and fast. Pick two, right? So you can have cheap and fast, but it's not good, or you can have good and fast, but it's not cheap, right? So that's a very direct correlation between all those things. But I've also heard it too in terms of talent and being successful, and I think it's Simon Sinek who's talked about this. In there's something like that as well, and like you can be talented, you can have good work ethic and gumption, or you can be lucky, pick one of those, right? So if you're super talented, you're going to get picked up and noticed. That doesn't mean you're going to stay in the field. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful forever, but you might get to what you want to. And we see this with like young directors who kind of burn out because once they actually get into the business of it, they can't handle it. Then there's people with, there's talent. Gumption is the third. I want to finish on gumption. Oh, or lucky. You know the right people. So you're brought up with the right people, and then you get into a position because you work with good people, and you get there because of that. And then the gumption is just the stick with itness. And TC DeWitt, who's been on this, has talked about that as well. And he's like, it's 7 years. If you come to LA, like plan on like 7 years, I believe, and you'll be doing stuff that you love. And sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later, but like if you stick with it, you will get there. And I think part of that is like that whole 10,000 hours idea of like, if you put in the work, you're going to be good at something. Like right now, I'm rubbish at Japanese. I'm trying, I've been working on it pretty much off. I was going to say off and on, but off and on for like, a year. And I can do a little bit of stuff. I knew if I practiced every day, I'd be really good at it. Right? I could learn it. I might not have, if it's dancing, I might not have the body that can do certain things in a certain way. So I might not be able to achieve something, but I'm sure, I could work hard and be at that. The only challenges you have is like, I could never be a fighter pilot because I have glasses, right? You can't have bad eyesight and be a fighter pilot or an astronaut or things like that. And, certain things in ballet, I'm sure you can't be this unless you're this tall or, like one of those things. And you mentioned your height, but having greater opportunity being in the Midwest to do things because they're like, hey, we've got 10 extremely talented people here, but we don't have the one person, out of 100 or out of thousands that is our jumper. We have these 10 great people and you're our jumper because you're just really athletic or something.
Yeah, I feel like in dance, just because it's so competitive and you do have to there has to be a base talent. I mean, you have to have been born with certain attributes and you can't do anything about that. You're either like born with hips that will allow your femurs to like move in that way, or and most people can at least get enough.
John's got the hips.
Yeah.
especially to get paid to do it, right? Because I think that's there's a supply and demand to any industry. There's a massive demand for film and video production. So there's a lot of space in it. There's a smaller demand for football, like paid football. Mm-hmm. So, if you want to be a professional football player, get paid to play football, you need to be one of 52 times 32 teams, people, which is that's a decent group, but
but out of 300 million or
yeah. And then the same with dance. Like you could now with football or whatever, you could be in clubs that play locally and have fun things or whatever, but they're not going to be like paid. They're not going to be a career. And so with dance, like if you don't have that certain something that you're talking about and you just like it and you work really hard at it, you might get to have some opportunity to enjoy it, but turning that into a career seems like you're saying takes that extra something.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, like these auditions are just brutal. I remember going to one for, I think it was Houston Ballet, which like I knew I was not going to get hired by Houston Ballet, but the audition was free and it was the beginning of the audition season. And I just kind of wanted to like shock myself back into audition season again because it's terrible. It's so awful. You just go in and like you will start dancing I've been to auditions where I'm doing plies, which is the first thing you do. You're 5 minutes into class, and what they do is they just walk around, and if they don't want you, they just tap you on the shoulder and say thank you. So I didn't
Oh
even
boy.
dance. They just like looked at my body and were like, no. I mean, so, but I remember going to that, and there were like 400 women, and that was just their Houston audition. And I'm sure they had one in San Francisco and New York and the big cities, and then not to mention in Europe, and then not to mention the people that are going to send in their videos. And I think they had two jobs available. Like they could say, I want a woman that's 5'8", blonde, brown eyes. Her left leg is slightly longer than her right, and they could probably find it if that's what they wanted. Like, because there's just that many people that want to do it. But so you have to be born with a certain ability. You just do. But within that, yeah, there are plenty of people that I saw throughout my training who were way more talented than I was, or certainly than a lot of people that I end up dancing with, because they didn't want to put the work in. And then either some director or some choreographer is just going to be like, I don't want to work with you. Because that's the one thing, is since everyone is so good, you can't, unless you are one of the stars. I mean, and there are those people. You really can't be that big of a jerk, because nobody's going to want to work with you. Or the other thing is, even if they want to work with you, if you didn't put the work in, you're going to get injured.
Mm-hmm.
Like your muscles aren't strong enough, and you're just going to blow your knees out or something, because you just didn't like stabilize that joint. You didn't really put the effort in to build that strength. And so if you didn't put that work in, you're not going to make it. But yeah, if you don't want to do it as a career, there are these there's kind of like adult companies in a lot of major cities where they do performances, but they're not, it's not like at the big theater. It's not anything like that. And it's much more recreational. And yeah, if you just love dance, you can certainly achieve like a very high level of it. But the professional caliber is like an entirely different,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a different atmosphere completely to get up into that one.
You'll have to come up with the marketing for that. What it takes, the triangle of three things. Like you got to have three of these three things in order to achieve anything. But if American cinema has taught me anything, it's that I can do anything I can set my mind to. But we do have a couple of questions that I wanted to get to. Carolyn asked a couple of questions, but I think this is kind of pertinent. So this is one from Emily that's actually kind of pertinent to where we are talking about kind of post-dancing. Do you have any recommendations for creative outlets for former dancers after they've aged out or started a family, or, after they can dance professionally? Oh. Oh, wow.
It's really hard. And I think professional athletes who stop, they get it, but it's not something that the average, if you don't have that kind of passion and then have it taken away from you, and then it's like you have to look at the rest of your life and be like, well, now what?
Real quick, can you give me the beginning of that quote? I missed it because I had you guys muted from when I was talking. Sorry. I just need the beginning of that quote.
I think it's Martha Graham, and it says, I'm not going to maybe get it quite right, but it's a dancer dies twice is the beginning of it. So I'm pretty sure it's Martha Graham. But
and the first death when you stop dancing is more painful.
This first death is more painful, and I agree with that. So in terms of like finding something that is going to be similar, like honestly, I'm still working on that. So I don't have a great answer to that. I know a lot of people tend to still go into somewhat creative careers. So a lot of dancers end up being like photographers or graphic designers, things like that, because it's still quite creative. For some people, teaching dance can be really good because you're still in it. But for some people, that's actually really can be almost very painful because you're in it, but not really. It doesn't have the same benefit as when you were dancing. So that can feel almost hard. I don't know. It's really, really, really hard, and people
Hmm.
really struggle with that a lot. Um, there's no easy way, but I know for some people who they're using those kind of for people who weren't professionals but danced at a high level and really enjoyed it, those kind of uh, there's one in Madison. It's like an adult company that you can just opt in and out of, and some people really like that. The thing is if you were a professional, sometimes it. I know for me, I don't know if I would enjoy performing because it's like I know how it used to feel.
Mm.
I used to just be able to just like it didn't hurt. It was it's like this release that nothing else is like that. You're just on stage, you can feel the audience's emotions. It's so great. And like if I were to dance now, it just would feel like, oh God, this is not the same. So for me, I wouldn't enjoy that, but a lot of people do like those more the adult companies. And
Hmm.
there's some in Madison, and bigger cities have some too. So that's something that a lot of people like. But I wish I had a better answer.
No,
Therapy, I did
that's a
that.
great start, certainly. And we've got
Yeah.
some other questions that kind of get around this issue, so we'll keep talking about it. But Carolyn had a question. If something knows nothing about ballet, or maybe it's an underappreciated art, especially in places like Madison that aren't
Mhm.
New York or any of the other big locations that have kind of those big ballet schools. How do you recommend they start getting to know the art form, and what should they
Oh
pay
yeah.
attention to or look for?
I almost always recommend that you go watch at least three ballets before you even make any judgment on anything.
Hmm.
And you can definitely like go to the Nutcracker if you want. And the Nutcracker has like a lot of benefit to it. You're gonna recognize some of the music, which is gonna be good because it won't feel so foreign. You'll be like, I recognize this, so it's not all like new
Hmm.
information to you, so it won't feel as overwhelming. I would say if you're just starting for ballet, start with the lighter story ballets. So everybody who wants to see a ballet, they'll be like, I'm going to go see Swan Lake because I've heard of it. And Swan Lake is beautiful. It really is, but it's a drama, and like everybody, it's very sad. They die and all this stuff. Um, and there's a lot of moments in it that are very, very beautiful. Um, that you may that like you wouldn't appreciate as much if you know less. Like there's choreographic moments in there that you might not miss, like in the White Swan pas de deux when he's dancing with the good. She's not the evil swan; she's the good swan. There's a part where like her arms are out, and he like holds he like intertwines his arm around her arm and hugs her, and he does it with like one arm and then the other, and he hugs her, but he hugs her, and then later in the Black Swan paw, when it's the evil twin or whatever you want to call her, like seducing him, it's the same movement except she intertwines her arm around his and pulls it in. So if you are able to follow choreography enough, it's like the same thing except enough different that it tells a very different story.
Hmm.
But if you don't, so it's much more like she's seducing him than he's like lovingly embracing her, but it looks very similar. But you wouldn't maybe pick that up at first. So I would start with ballets like Capella is a great starter ballet. It's funny. You can follow the story even if you don't know anything about ballet because there's actually like mime
Capella?
in
What's that?
Capella. It's
Okay.
Ppellia. I don't know how many P's there are in there, but so it's like it's a funny story and it's really lighthearted. You might recognize some of the music. Um, it's famous classical music. So Capella would be a really good one. The Nutcracker's good because you're going to recognize some of the music.
Hmm.
Don Q could be a funny one, Don Quixote, because it's
Oh.
funny and it has he fights the windmills, and there's like a really really showy dance at the end where the guy like throws the girl up in the air and is like holding her up really high. So you get that athleticism too, and so you kind of will at least start to get some of the sense of what's going on, uh, like without it feeling like I would not recommend going to a ballet that's all brand new choreography and it's all contemporary because you're just going to be like, what's happening? I don't know what's going on
But I mean,
as a start.
Dracula was pretty cool. I mean, I feel like Dracula might have been one of the first ones that I'd seen, with you guys. I'd probably seen Nutcracker before that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
Dracula was maybe my second.
Yeah, and it told a story. So if you don't
Mhm.
if you don't know which ones to go, start with a
Story.
story ballet.
Hmm.
A story ballet, because you're going to be able to follow along and you'll know what's going on, and read that program so you know what's happening before you watch the ballet. Don't watch the ballet and then read the program, because you'll be like, who's that character? What's going on? I don't know what's happening, and then you don't enjoy it as much. So read the program. And I would say beforehand, try to read up a little bit on the ballet, just so you do know what's going on.
Mm.
You know what the characters are. You're going to be able to keep up with what's going on, so you'll actually like understand, why is this character doing that? And then if it's a joke, you'll get it, or if it's something sad, you'll get it. And then if you can, try to listen to any of the music, just because most people are just so unfamiliar with so much music. And if they're unfamiliar with the music and the idea of going to the theater and watching dancers go around on stage, like
Right.
it's just too many new things.
Right.
So try to become familiar with some aspect of it before you go. And that's going to really help your enjoyment level, because it won't feel so brand new.
Well, and we saw the Matchstick Girl this last year, and it's very sad. Also, but like you said, I think like if you know the story, like some of these ballets are based on a story, or maybe some of the stories are based on the ballet, whichever came first. But if you know the story, there's some engagement with the show in like, oh, this is that part where X, Y, and Z, and there's a dance that expands the whole thing, and I don't really know everything about the dance, but you're like, yeah, they're having a conversation, or whatever is taking place. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why in our Match to Girl, that's why we have a narrator, because we know that the majority of our audience is a beginner ballet audience. And that's why the narrator says what's happening before you see it. So you hear what's happening and then you watch it. And like one of my brothers who grew up watching me dance and actually took ballet for like a year, so you'd think he would have known this. He saw Matchstick Girl, and there's a section where we say that a character is looking for something. And so this guy runs on stage, and he's running up to everybody on stage, and he's doing this gesture like this and like this at people. And my brother said, "Oh, he's asking them." And I said, "What the heck? How many ballets have you seen? That's such a common thing in ballet that I would have assumed he would have known." But I said, what did you think he was doing? Why did you think he was running up to people and looking at them and going like this and waiting for them to respond?
Yeah.
He said, "I don't know. I just thought it was like a weird arm."
I haven't been to
And
many
he-
of them, but like that one tears at me, and it tore at me before Claire was Matchstick
Yeah.
Girl, but like that's one that I think is so story and wonderful, and I think you get some just exceptional dance in there as well that adds to the story. But just that, like watching that story, and like at the end, just as a parent, I don't know if I can give away the ending, but Dad,
you didn't make it up. It's the Hans Christian Andersen ending.
yeah, just like the little girl dying, and the whole matchstick and the light, and I'm kind of like, why weren't they paying attention? Why did they let her die? So I get really emotionally involved.
But I actually see that as such a success, because ballet should make you feel something. I think the way I kind of describe ballet is, if you're watching really, really, really well-trained dancers, you're not going to be, you're always going to find them pleasant to look at. Like whatever they're doing is going to not, if they're doing classical ballet, they're going to always look graceful. They're going to always look enjoyable in that way, like pleasant to look at. They're not going to be doing ugly things or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not well choreographed or to good music or something, it might be boring. You might just be like, yeah, I mean, you're pretty, but I'm bored. And I can appreciate how much work you put in, but I'm still bored. But if it's well choreographed, well composed, and good dancers, that's when you can feel something. And it really should, should go beyond just, oh yeah, they're athletes, and they are, and that's really, great to watch. But a good ballet should make you feel something, whether it's sadness or joy or happiness or even just beauty, like calm, whatever. It should make you feel something. And so I actually am very proud that with students, we, can make an audience cry. Like people are always like, why are you doing something sad? But it's, I mean, you could also look at it that she's going to heaven with her mom, who she's an orphan,
Right.
So, but just the fact that you watch it, I mean, I know I've watched ballets and, symphonies and operas where I'm like, yeah, I get they died, but I don't care. Or like a movie, like, yeah, that character died, but I don't care that they died. So the fact that you care is, I take that as a compliment. I realize it was your daughter, but still.
No, even before that. Yeah. Yep.
So this is a loaded question that we could go on forever with, but let's see if you've got some little tidbits that you can send us off with. Another question is, since you've started this thing, what recommendations do you have for people starting a new business or nonprofit?
Oh my God. Yeah. Find people to help you. Just people who know about the thing you need help with, and just do not be afraid to ask for help. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know what that means or what that is. I don't know how many meetings I was in at first where somebody's talking and I have a notebook and I'm just like, learn what that is. Okay, learn what that means, and just taking notes, like, but really just finding good people who do know, and that I can go into a meeting and say, look, I don't know anything about this, but you do. Can you help me? I think that more than anything else, that is the thing that is gonna make it happen. That, don't pretend that you know everything and go off that assumption, because you don't and you can't.
Yeah. That all makes sense to me. I would say the other thing, like with us, like I don't really look at myself as like an entrepreneur. People say like, oh yeah, you're an entrepreneur, you start a business, but we actually pursued a field that we were really interested in and something that we wanted to do that we enjoyed. Whereas like people who like entrepreneurship as a job, as a field, specifically the actual stuff of the business or organization, they don't really care. Not too much, because it's really the business side that's interesting to them, and building these things and seeing how they work. Whereas like if your passion is the thing that you're doing, I guess where I'm headed with making a point is, if you pour yourself into it, you're going to be able to do something with it. And then, like you said, you need to like connect yourself with people that know, hey, how do we do this? How do we do that? There's people you can hire, if you need them to do your accounting and your taxes and the finance side of it, or, whatever it is. But if you're really passionate about it, it's like, yeah, you can do the thing. You just pour yourself into it and, find the opportunities wherever they are, and then being flexible too, to see like, okay, what do we need to change? I thought we were going to go this way, but we're going to actually do this.
Well, there's that idea too of serial entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial spirit. Like we know a serial entrepreneur who, I don't think he, gets too invested in what the actual thing is or whatever. But like for us, like I feel like I am an entrepreneur, and here, let me hit that real quick. And it's a part of why we can be successful, is because we all have that entrepreneurial spirit and that idea. But we do have one other question from Carolyn, I think, that ties into some of our experience. And I remember, it's okay. I muted you, but you can stay. Don't mute yourself. So when you talk, you'll be on. when we did 2 years ago, we did this EV land. We shot it, and we worked with ballerinas and male danseurs from Madison Ballet. And there was an experience where a producer of ours walked in to one of the ballerinas' spaces to get them and say, "Hey, we're ready for you." Walked in, and the ballerina was naked and just turned around and was like, "Hey, what's up?" Just like totally normal, like every day, like no big thing. So the question that we have, I think it's an early question from Carolyn. Share an embarrassing story, stage story, please. Or you just, whatever you're comfortable with. Like just a big twist and a jump and a leg kick and a just giant, just rip a fart. Perfect. Yeah. Oh no.
For Dance Magazine now. But
Hang on,
anyways,
let me have you restart. Sorry, I had your audio
oh,
muted because I'm a jerk.
oh no.
I'm a huge jerk.
Oh,
So
no.
you had mentioned
Sometimes.
so I mentioned farting. You mentioned farting happens in the wings because everyone's
In the
nervous.
wings.
Usually
Yeah, everyone's
not
in the
on
wings.
stage, but something else
Yeah.
happened too.
Yeah. So in the Nutcracker one year, I was I was the doll, and you start off stage in this box, and it's you, and I was the oh, I don't remember what it's called. I was the girl doll, and then there's the soldier doll. So this guy's in the
Mm.
box with me, and you get rolled on stage, and they spin it around, and there's a secret door on the inside that you hold closed, and then like you can pop out, and it's a magic trick. But anyways, so thank goodness at least this was a dress rehearsal. The first time we were doing this, we closed the secret door, and then we're just like standing in this box waiting, but they spin it around, and then so two things happened actually, but they spin it around, and then we know that like our cue is coming up, but we no longer know which way is front, because we didn't like think to keep track of where the front of the box was, because it's pitch black in there. So we're like flipping around, like, what crap, which way is going to be front? Like they're going to open the door, and we're on stage, and somebody should have told us to keep track of where front was. So they open the door, and it's like both of our butts like facing the audience. We're like straight the wrong way. And for him, he's just like in a soldier costume, but for me, it's a tutu. In the back of a tutu is just like a bunch of frilly crap. So it's just like a big circle butt like facing the audience. But also the next day we went to get in it, and I was like, okay, we got to keep track of the front. Also, this box smells terrible. Did you notice? And he was like, yeah, that was me. And I was like, dude,
no.
why did you fart in the box? We're in there for like 10 minutes.
Oh no.
So yeah, that was like, we're standing in those then we called it the gas chamber. I don't know if that, but that was what we called that. So,
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
yeah, sorry, Carolyn. I know which story you were trying to get me to tell, but that's not going to be public consumption.
Yeah, she says there are some mitigating circumstances here.
Yeah, but there have definitely been times, like one time in a performance I had, it's a running shoulder set. So like your partner's on the other side of the stage, and you guys run and you meet in the middle. And when right before you get to him, the woman turns and jumps and lands up on his shoulder. And so he kind of like scoops down, and you have to like jump in like a seated position. And you can't, like, you're going backwards when you jump, because obviously you're landing on his shoulder. So you know where he's going to be.
Oh no.
Because so he's not there yet, because he's running also. So you're jumping to the spot where he's going to be, and then he just like better get there, which he always did. But this one show, I don't know if I was like a little bit off to the side or what, but I don't know even what part of my body hit him, but I heard his jaw like up so hard, and I thought that maybe I'd like knocked him out, and I was like, oh my gosh, are we gonna like I haven't fallen yet, so I don't think that I knocked him out. But when he puts you down, you face him, and I was like, are you okay? And he kind of looked like dazed, and we had another one, like I had to run away and then do it again, and I was like, sorry, catch me though, like ran away.
Yeah, here comes my butt. I can't see what's happening.
Sorry. But yeah, it was always funny when like stuff would happen on stage and you'd somehow have interaction like with the audience, which didn't happen often. But I remember one show of Nutcracker, I was doing my the Sugar Plum variation, and like sometimes it just felt so easy and so fun, and other times you kind of are like, wow, I'm just like tired, or it just feels like you're fighting with it, and you get it done, but you're like, whoo, I did that, but it was a lot of work today. So that was one of those shows. And so I finish, and you finish with these turns and then like a pose. And then I finish, and I just go, hoo-wee. Like I'm smiling, but I was just like, hoo-wee. I was talking to my partner who was like right beside the curtain that the audience couldn't see, but I was talking to him because he was like, wow, you fought through that. But this old lady in the front row kind of like looked up at me, like, you just talked. And I looked right down at her, and I just like winked at her, like, yep. Continued on. And she looked like, what just happened? Like, how can you interact with me? Are you a human? And it was really funny. She kind of was very shocked.
That's amazing. That probably made that such a memorable experience and so much fun for that woman.
Probably, to be like the Sugar Plum, like spoke and then winked at me.
Yeah, I was in the show. I was in the Nutcracker.
She actually saw me and interacted.
We had a moment. Yeah, she saw me. She saw my spirit.
She felt me.
So we are wrapping up here. I'm going to give you a chance to come up with two truths and a lie. It's one thing we like to play. John and I won't give those. I'll vamp and talk about next week. But what you got to do is you got to come up with two stories that are true, one that is a lie, and we're going to guess which one is the lie.
Oh, so, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Two stories, or just like fun facts?
It could be a fun fact. I mean, it could be like, I broke my arm when I was 12. Now, you could like lawyer us in the parlance of How I Met Your Mother, but it's more fun if it's, an extreme story that is yours, and then, an extreme story that is maybe a friend of yours. That's a John trick where you can tell it really, really well, but it's not you. So just come up with two truths, one lie. You got a minute. I'll talk about the show next week. So while Molly's doing that, here, let me switch over. Here we go. Okay. So Molly's prepping for that. I am the Goblin King. I don't know if anybody at home was able to guess that, but I've been Gareth once before. I had all these things, and John is always actually like just amazing at Halloween. So he usually comes in 1 to 3 costumes. You can see him over here as his awesome Johnny from Hotel Transylvania. Let me see. I can throw this up again. Show and tell. There we go. John and Amanda, they always have amazing costumes. So I kind of wanted to come in something. Emily's been doing our digital marketing, and she encouraged us to dress up. So I came as one of my previous costumes that I've had before, Gareth the Goblin King. You can actually see like some of my fake skin to cover up my eyebrow is the worst. So when I come in, you guys are going to see that, and it's all right. The hair kind of covers it. We tried. I think last time I used like wax, like makeup wax, but the makeup store wasn't open, so I couldn't get any. But yeah, Labyrinth, such a great movie, and great, I guess, just nostalgic experience of the 90s for anybody who's seen that. I do have you guys muted right now, so I'll make sure when we're ready to unmute you. But I did want to mention next week we've got a great guest. We've got Joe Fulton. Let me double check. Yeah, Joe Fulton, who is a childhood friend of Jeff Bell, our editor, our lead editor here. So Jeff's going to be joining us. And Joe, actually, he is the other type of person. We just started working here and got into the production industry here. He went out to California and LA and has now worked on many different things. He is actually Emmy nominated for his work. He's originally from Janesville. He's worked on sitcoms such as Will and Grace on NBC, The Great Outdoors on CBS. His latest project includes a film, A Thousand Little Cuts, and a new AMC show called Kevin Can F Himself. And both will premiere in 2021. So that'll be fun. We've met Joe before, but just longtime friend of Jeff. So John and I will probably just sit back and relax while those guys just have at it. But we're really excited about that. That'll be our happy hour next week. How are we doing over there, Molly? Okay. All right. I got your audio back on. So here we go.
Okay.
Give it to us.
All right. So I once was a model for a medical artist, and I modeled my nipples so that women who got mastectomies could choose the Molly nipple for their new boobs. I once had to go to that's one. The next one. I once had to go to the doctors twice in one day because the first time
because of the modeling for the nipple.
No, I was like hanging a painting, and you're not supposed to do this, but like you hold a nail in your teeth,
Oh no.
And had to go to the doctors for that.
Wait.
And
I lost you there for a second. So you glitched out.
Yeah.
So nail in the teeth, and
So
then
I
what
was
happened?
And you're like hammering something in, so I accidentally swallowed the nail. So I had to go to the doctor for that. And later on that day, I was still going, and then I had the hammer on a shelf, and it fell and hit me on the
Oh
head.
no.
And I had to go into the doctor again, and I said, oh man, this must be like the dumbest thing you've seen. And the doctor was like, no man, earlier today this guy came in or this like lady came in and she'd swallowed a nail. They were talking about me. So that's 2. And then 3, one time I accidentally got stuck I was driving around in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's really confusing to drive around in, and I was like driving, and I got onto this main road, and I was like, there were all these closed roads, and so I ended up there, and I was like, this is super weird, like just the traffic isn't going the right way, and I'm not quite sure what's going on, and the car in front of me looks really weird, and so I'm like driving, and I can't get off the street, like everything's closed, and then there's like people everywhere, and then I realized that I was part of a parade. So I had somehow gotten myself into the parade, so now I'm like just this random person as one of the floats, but I was not. So those are the 3 things.
Those are good ones. Yeah. You might not have played this game before, but you're an expert at it.
I think I had a big tell, but.
All right. I'll have John go first because I know I've known you longer. It's not actually helpful. It's not actually helpful.
I was really trying to guess stories you didn't know, but.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah, I thought I was thinking for a while, like, oh, it's definitely going to be this next one, and then they all sounded. It's like these all sound like stories that are like legit. There's too much detail for all of them. I'm going to say the first one, the nipple model.
Nipple model. Yeah, I really want that one to be true, because if I could be a nipple model for anybody who had surgery, I would totally do it. That'd be great, just to think that there's other people out there who have a nipple styled after my own.
They're sporting the Ryan.
That's hilarious. I love that, and I hope that is a part of your life. Then number 3 was you accidentally were a part of a parade. And then number 2 was the nail and the hammer. That was good. I feel like any of these. Hang on, I'm gonna pause you real quick. Any of these could have been true. The nail and the head. Another. That seems like a joke. That seems like a joke from somebody, because it seems. I don't know. It seems like well written. So I'm gonna go with number 2 being a joke from somebody, and to be the lie.
Okay, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 did not happen to me, but did happen to someone. So
Perfect.
it's real, but was my friend's uncle.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So you got it right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is hilarious. It sounds like a sitcom when they come in. They're like, "Yeah, no, it could have been worse. You could have swallowed a nail."
Yeah, that's exactly. And he was like, "Yeah, look at the chart."
Yeah,
Because it was a different doctor, but the same hospital, same freaking day.
that's great.
I love that story.
So have
Yeah.
you met any of your nipple children?
I have not. I don't know what happened after that, but
Also,
it was
you said like a scientific artist or like a doctor artist?
a medical artist.
Medical artist.
A medical artist. So she was the person who, if you like lost one of your hands, she'd like draw it so that when they made the other hand, it would
Wow.
match. And so they were trying to make many choices of nipples so that
And this
women
is for
could,
like prosthetics?
yeah, for prosthetics. So for
Oh,
women
wow.
who'd had mastectomies. And I think it was, I think their main goal was that like if you only lost one, you could maybe try to find one that would sort of match, or maybe if you were losing both. I don't really, it was for mastectomy women. So I'm not
Yeah,
quite sure
it was for science.
what happened after that. Yep. So they took like a silicone mold and then they had to draw it, and yeah. So that was one
Did
of
you get
my
a sign off
after-
on it? You're like, "Yep, that looks like it. Yep, that's."
Oh no,
the
I didn't
one."
see the end. I didn't see the end result, but I'd signed off that they could use my nipple likeness.
Just the nip likeness. Do you get royalties at all?
No, I don't. I
For every
don't know where.
$1,000 somebody spends on that, you get a buck.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to the Molly nipple. I'm hoping that someone is proudly sporting it, but
That's awesome.
I don't really know that. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's about 1:56, which is awesome. We did start a little bit late, but as you know, we're just good friends. We could talk forever, but we do got to let people on the internet go. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with us for so long. Is there anything else you wanted to wrap up with or share or promote?
Yeah, I guess we have our winter showcase coming up December 5th. We're going to be doing some kind of live streaming of it. It'll just be an in-studio performance with our students. Every level will have a separate live stream. The pre-pro one, though, will probably be about a half hour. So that'll be a pretty kind of fun show to watch. We're not going to set any details until we have more information, so that hopefully we don't have to change the plan after we make it. But we
Is that
know
going to
it's
be
December
free
7th.
or paid, or how does that
It's
work?
going to be a donation
Oh,
if you'd
nice.
like to donate for it. Yeah. So it'll be free, but please consider donating, because we
Perfect,
usually
yes.
do make like $3,000 on our show that we can't do this year.
So if we could
Yeah.
get one donor of $3,000, then everything else is just
Then we're
benefit. Benefit. Well,
Yeah.
everything else just benefits the growth and expansion of the program. So
Yep. Then we
the
can build a
academy.
new studio that fits all our dancers in it.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's what we got. John, do you got anything else for me or for the listeners at home as we wrap up here?
Just good luck. I hope you find some candy tomorrow.
Yeah, good luck. Don't screw it up. Check out, what is it, centralmidwestballetacademy.com or .org?
cmballet.org.
I should know this. cmballet.org. Look
Yep.
for information about the December showcase. Sign up. Give us a little donation. Share the wealth. So that these guys can keep doing such great work and keep training those who want to be professional, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and those who
Yeah.
just want to have fun.
Yeah.
It's all of it.
And those who want to just get to be the best that they can. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. So awesome. Thank you, Molly, so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank
that's
you.
all we've got for this week. we're going to be coming back next week at noon with Joe Fulton, as I mentioned. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much, everyone. And see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.